Breaking news tonight, a Columbus County man escaped law enforcement a couple weeks ago.
He's back in Columbus County tonight. Law enforcement has extradited Dwayne Manning back to Columbus County. You may remember he took off from probation and parole officers earlier this month as they tried to get him into the Columbus County Jail.
Manning was on parole for a homicide conviction in 1994. He is facing charges for larceny of motor vehicle, resisting public officer, and more. A court date has not been set. Manning is currently being held without bond.